Baby, I don't like it in here.
Hey, what's the matter with you?
Where did he go?
This place is wild. Put your soul into it. This place is wild. What's going on around you?
And welcome everybody to Haunting Live podcast this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, of course, for following us over on social media. We've noticed a lot more people following us lately, so thank you very much for all your support and continued support here on Haunting Live podcast. You can check us out here on Facebook and also on YouTube later on for our premiere launch later tonight at 11 o'clock. So check that out if you missed the Facebook post. But you can also listen to us on podcast apps if you miss any of that on the day of when we do the podcast. But today we do have a very special guest joining us here on Haunting Live podcast. We are joined by Christine Ball, and she's local here to us, and we're going to be talking to her about what she does in the intuitive field. So let's bring on Christine. Hi, Christine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for taking time out this week and joining us here on Haunting Live podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about what you do today. And I know that's intuitive work, so let's start with how you got into the intuitive field. What drew you into that?
Sure. I always like to say I was always kind of the weird sheep of the family because I brought home ideas and things that nobody had ever heard of in my family, even from when I was small. I was sure that I was a witch from about the time I was 4. And I remember being in the backyard making like potions out of sugar and flour and water and leaves and things. So I've kind of been interested in all this kind of thing from a very young age. And I can't say that I did a whole lot when I was younger, but the older I got, the more I realized that I kind of just knew things. And I was always drawn to healing, to nature. So the more I did, the older I got, the more I realized that the intuition part was a big part of, what I did. And it just kind of seemed to go along with the different healing modalities that I was studying at the time. And it's just kind of gotten more and more as I've gotten older, stronger and stronger. So
what was some of your first experiences that you had once you started working with that field in intuitive? Was there something that really drew you into it that said, well, that's something I kind of work with, and wonder what that was?
Yeah. Medicine and healing in the body and things have always seemed like very easy for me. So I don't know, maybe I was a doctor or something in a past life, but it's always been something that's been very natural to me. And working with herbs, working with different healing modalities and things, there was always just the intuitive side of things that kind of went with it. Probably one of the first major experiences I had was I had a health food store years and years ago. And we had lots of the different herbs on the shelves. And I used to make, different potions and things for people because I studied herbology at the College of Natural Healing where I had gone. So one day a lady had come in and she'd had a cough, and I was standing at the herbs putting a formula together for her. And I literally felt someone take over my arms, and they started to reach for other jars. And I was still talking to this lady, wondering what on earth was happening. And I'm trying to be really calm, but somebody else has got my hands and they're moving them around, picking different jars. And when we were done, I checked the formula that I had made for her with these strange other hands. And it was actually a more effective formula for that particular cough that she had. And then it was just gone. So that got my attention for sure. And I think for a long time, you know how you hear the stories of people that, see things and they experience like so much. And I always wanted that kind of experience. But what I've come to realize is that my gift is like clairsentience. There's no bells and whistles. It's just, I know or I don't. So when I have that kind of clairsentience, so I was kind of waiting for the fireworks and the burning bushes for a long time. but mine is much more low key, and it's more like that. You just know.
Right.
So that's kind of how I function.
And so from there, then, did you continue on developing your intuition and learn more as you went on?
Mm-hmm.
How did you grow day to day with your experiences? Did it help you at all?
They did. I mean, I've always been extremely, I'd rather say sensitive than emotional, because sometimes the emotional, when people say, "Oh, you're so emotional," it's not meant in a very nice way, but very sensitive. I could pick up information walking into a room, especially with my kids. They were both very, very sensitive, and they'd look up from playing. I remember my daughter. We had a good friend who'd gone away on a trip, and we weren't expecting her back until the next day. And she looked up at me and she said, "So and so's home." I said, "No, no, honey, she's coming home tomorrow." And sure enough, the person called me like next 5 minutes and said, "Oh, we're home early." So my kids have always picked up things as well. And I just like it day to day because I do a lot of dowsing as well. So, I mean, I ask questions, is this good for me today? Sometimes I'll be driving down a road and I'll just kind of get a hit that, what, just take this other route. And I don't always know why I need to take that other route, but I'm trying to work with it a lot more consciously. So I just take the other route and trust that there's probably a reason that I should have gone that way. So,
Yeah, do you find that you get messages like that quite often, that you work with it day to day, it's building up more for you, that you can actually use that as a trusted source almost?
I do, especially when I see clients and things. Um, Oftentimes doing Reiki or just, getting into that state where you're kind of, it's not like meditation, but you're kind of like accessing a different level of consciousness. And sometimes I'll get pictures, sometimes I'll get information about the person that I should maybe ask about. When I first did Reiki, it took quite a long time for me to feel things through my hands. And that was really important because when I teach Reiki, I always tell people, don't get so focused on your hands that you don't get their information other ways. Because what was happening with me is I was standing there looking at my hands, wishing that that would, turn on. The clients were happy. The Reiki was flowing just fine. But I wasn't paying attention to the pictures that I was getting in my mind, which were giving me clues to my clients. So once I've kind of stood back and realized that's actually how I get my information, then I was able to, use that a little bit more fully. So it's kind of just a nice little like a prompt sometimes. You might just get that little feeling, hey, ask them about this. And it might be something that's important to our healing plan that we put together, or makes them kind of go, oh, hey, I never thought of that. So yeah, the more I open myself up to it, the more I work with it, the easier it comes.
Yes, exactly. So the more you work with anything, the more easier it does become eventually.
Right.
How does that relate to you putting that into your clients when they come to see you? Is it something that they're kind of expecting? Like, do they expect you to point them in a certain direction? Or are they kind of shocked by how much accurate it is? Or how do they come to you normally?
Sometimes it's sometimes a little bit of both. I find that when I start to, if I get a little hit on something, I don't really have any other way to describe it, but it's almost like I'll start to say, this, I feel like I need to ask you about this. But then it's like, then the information starts to come. And as I talk, I'm not sure if I want to use the word channel, but it's almost like it kind of opens a connection. And then there's just a bit more that comes out and comes out. Sometimes it's just a straight Reiki treatment, and there's not a whole lot of extra that goes with it. But I do connect with nature a lot because I make my own flower essences, and I use flower essences a lot in my practice. So I'm connecting with nature an awful lot, every day at least. Um, and I get a lot of information that way. It kind of depends on what the client needs and what I end up getting that day for them. So sometimes it can be a holy mackerel session, and sometimes it's just kind of nice and pleasant and helpful.
Yeah, sometimes that's just what they need, I guess, right? Sometimes they get exactly what they
Exactly.
want, straight to the point. Other times it takes a while. It's just like anything else, I guess.
Yep. Agreed.
So what type of treatments do you provide for your clients? And do you do Reiki? Do you do intuitive sessions or anything else different that you want to talk about?
Sure. I do Reiki. I am a Reiki teacher, so I can teach it as well as do it. I've done that, I think, for about 10 years now. And I also do the emotion code. So the emotion code is moving out stuck bits of emotional energy that might have gotten jammed up during our life. It doesn't have to be something traumatic. It can just be something that got stuck. And I always say, think of it like a tuning fork. If you have a tuning fork that's vibrating to a certain tone, and you bring another one close, it'll start to vibrate together. So if we have a lot of stuck emotional energy in our field, then it can get kind of triggered by other people's intense emotions. So when you can get rid of a lot of that kind of emotional junk, it just keeps you less reactive to different things. People can also have trapped emotions from traumatic events or maybe a car accident or something. And it just kind of lets everything get flowing again instead of kind of being tightened up because of the emotion surrounding something like that. Flower essences. So flower essences are energy, not oils. I'm not an aromatherapist, so I don't use essential oils for my clients. But all flowers have a healing pattern. So they have a pattern that helps us heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And if anybody has used Rescue Remedy, that is a flower essence. It's a blend of 5 of them. And they were first created by Dr. Bach, who was a British physician back in the 1920s. And I have some that I buy pre-made. I have some that I make for myself. And I use about 100 of them right now. And the intuitive things that I do, I can sit down with a person and I muscle test for them. So it's a lot faster than using a pendulum. And we just connect and I can test for them. And I can check for the essences that they need. And just by looking at the essences, I can kind of get a sense of what their emotional picture is right now. And then that way, these essences can help them clear those blocks and things.
It sounds to me as you're talking there about certain points and stuff. Is that related to the chakras at all, or is that something different that you're talking about?
It probably is. How can I put it? I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about where these things are because I trust the intelligence of the person's body. And that's another way that my sessions are a little bit different is that when someone comes to me, if they come and they say, I want a Reiki treatment, no problem. We can do Reiki. You know what you need. But sometimes when people are new, you might have run into it too, Trevor. If they're not exactly sure what it is that you do and what all of this means, they might kind of go, oh, I don't know what to pick. So I'm not going to pick anything because I don't know how any of this works. So what we do is we sit down together and I kind of explain, but then I will connect with them energetically and then I'll muscle test for them to see what they need that day. So maybe they need flower essences first. That kind of starts things moving. And then we might move to the Reiki. So it seems that better for me to just ask their body, hey, what do you actually need? Because you know best. And then that way we can tailor the treatment to what they need.
Right, and how often do you find that that tells you the truth right away? Does it come out really fast for you? Does it say, okay, I need boom, boom, boom for this person?
Yeah, it's instant, actually. Yeah, the muscle testing for me is probably my best intuitive tool because once I connect energetically with somebody, I can muscle test for them right away.
And how did you learn that? Explain what muscle testing is in a bit more detail as you can. That sounds really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Is it something medical or is it something more along the lines of intuitive medicine?
I think it's more along the lines of intuitive medicine. Some people have had muscle testing where they put their arm out and then it's like resist my arm and you get like strong is yes, weak is no. So some people might be familiar with doing it with their arms that way. But I find that if I'm muscle testing for a lot of different things, it could make the person's arm tired and then you kind of get mushy answers. So if I ask to connect with them, I can test for their body, which sounds kind of weird, but it works. So that way they're not tired, they can be relaxed. and I can just do it for them. So when you see my fingers like this, it's like, this is strong. So that's a yes. And then that's no. And I just got good at doing it by doing it hundreds of times a day. Just show me yes, show me no, show me yes, show me no, until I trusted how I do it. And I learned that mostly through the emotion code, because there's a lot of muscle testing with that too.
Okay, so let's go there next then. Can you go into a bit more detail again about what the emotion code entails, exactly like step by step how you would proceed with a client for testing like that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. I sometimes call it spiritual Jenga. So if you've ever seen a Jenga, stacked up, sometimes you think the issue is at the top here, but sometimes you have to move those little bricks and things from down below before things start to move. So I've had some people come and trying to think of a case. There was something that happened and they just couldn't get past it. It's like, you know what? It's been 5 years. I just can't let this go. So I would connect with them and we'd ask if they have any trapped emotions. So that's the first ask. Does so-and-so have any trapped emotions around the situation involving the car accident, let's say? And so then I would either get a yes or a no. So if it's yes, then I can just start asking, okay, so trapped emotions around the car accident. I have a chart that has all of the emotions that we deal with. And so we ask, is it column A or column B? And that just kind of gets rid of half right away. Then we ask which row and column it's in. And that's just a super fast way to hone in on the trapped emotions that are ready to be let go, because your body knows best. Some people have 50 and they say, my God, I am so screwed up. And I say, no, it just means you are ready to let 50 bits of junk go. And sometimes it's just one that needs to percolate and, their body has to kind of reorganize a little bit, and then we can do more later.
Right. Sounds very interesting that you actually can chart that out and make sure that, you're getting to the right points really quickly. How does a person feel usually after they have such a treatment that you provide? Like, what's the normal outcome usually that your clients have?
A lot of times it's a feeling of lightness. Sometimes when we're doing the session, especially if there's a few of them, I can almost see their eyes get heavy and it's like they just kind of want to sleep a little bit. So then I might step in and help do the clearing for them. But then they kind of recuperate and they perk back up and they say, wow, I just feel like I can breathe. I just feel lighter. Sometimes there has been physical pain that seems to be eased by this. You never know really what's going to happen, but I would say generally speaking, people don't feel as triggered by certain situations. They may just feel a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter, a little bit able to move forward a little easier. Yeah. None of the things that I do ever take any kind of the place of any medical or, mental health treatment, like at all. All of this to me should be working together. So you always stay with what your doctor or your therapist or, your care provider says. But most of the time, these can just be really helpful additions to things. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. Like if you have a medical issue, you should definitely go see a medical practitioner, not
Oh,
relying
yeah.
on like energy work or anything. Energy work is great to
Absolutely.
relieve certain things, but if it's a strict medical issue,
Yeah.
definitely go to your medical doctor.
You bet.
But speaking of that, though, a lot of times stress is related to physical injuries. So, I mean, like if you have a physical injury, obviously you're going
Yeah.
to be under a lot of mental stress as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you find that that helps your clients relieve some of the physical energies that they have?
Yeah. The flower essences are tremendous for that, especially for things that are, say, happening like right now. So, for example, with COVID and things, there's just so much newness for a lot of us. Like, I think most of us have been through really crummy situations. They're short, so we kind of do what we need to do. We can rally and then we just carry on. But this has just been like forever. So many of us are in a state where the normal things that helped before, they don't help. And it's that stressful itself. So, for example, with the flower essences, there are flower essences that help with, say, discouragement. So, when you kind of get those setbacks, like, oh my God, we're in lockdown again. There's fear. A lot of kids going back to school. I know there are some parents that are quite worried about it. So it's not that it keeps you from feeling these things. It just keeps you from being controlled by it or like overwhelmed by them. And that they're so gentle. They're so easy to work. Big changes. There are some that are great for pets. There are some that are great for people. And it's usually an individual recipe. I do have some blends that are kind of, one's called Boundaries. So it's a really great one for people that are super sensitive, because sometimes when you're very, very sensitive, it's hard to put up boundaries or it's hard to let people in. So I have different formulas for things, but they're very supportive and helpful.
That's actually wonderful that you can actually pinpoint for people exactly what they need by that way too. So
Yeah.
they get more of a direct assistance from it, especially the essence and stuff from the flowers. I think is interesting.
Right.
Is it sort of like an incense type thing where you can actually burn it, or how does it work? Like, how do you use it?
So with this is not, how can I say, it's not, when you take echinacea for a cold, it's the actual plant that's ground up and it's put in alcohol. So that's like a herbal tincture. So flower essences are different. So it's the energy of the flower. So when we make a flower essence, we take a glass bowl with some spring water in it. And then I'll go down to the river and I'll just connect with one of the plants and I'll ask if it's okay. And I just snip one of the blooms and it falls into the bowl. And then we put that in the sunlight for 2 hours. And then we just carefully remove the flower. And that flower energy is now in the water. So then we preserve it half and half with vodka is what I prefer to use. And then that's basically your flower essence. So you can mix and match the drops. You can do the dowsing to find out what the person needs at the time. And it's just a drop or two. They're very powerful, but there's really, I guess you could say there's nothing in there, but it's energetic. Yeah.
So it's more energized directly to that person's specific needs at that time.
Right. The combination. So if I've got like the thistle and the spearmint and the tansy, all of those, when I muscle test for them, I can ask, do they need this one? Yes or no? This one? Yes or no? And then I can just take all of my bottles and create their very own unique remedy for them.
And do you sort of keep a history of these and know what you're using for future clients and whatnot? Like, do you have a sort of chart that you make up so you know this remedy works well for this instance or something like that?
Yeah, I do. The neat thing about making things unique to a person is that you might have 3 or 4 people with, say, the same symptom, like all 4 of them are afraid, but they all might be afraid in a different way. They all might have something underlying. So even though all 4 of them are afraid, they may have 4 different recipes that I use for them, because I would connect with them to find out what exactly they need.
It's hard to do, though, I guess, because sometimes that person might have a more specific issue than the other person, so it may not match up all the time with that same recipe, right?
Very true. Very true. And that's why I like being able to connect and make everything specific to the person at the time, because we do change. Our mental state changes, our physical state changes, everything changes. So it's nice to be able to, connect with them where they are at the moment. Yeah.
And can you give one example of how that has helped one of your clients? You don't have to go into like any specific details, but was there one outcome that you remember that was like, wow, that really worked well?
Definitely. I had a friend who was, excuse me, she just had a lot going on, and there was a lot of stuff coming at her from many different directions in her life. And she just felt she couldn't say no to anybody. And it was dragging her down, and it wasn't any good for her health at all. So we had a chat, and I said, do you want to try the Boundaries spray? Just see what happens. So you can take the drops by mouth. You can put them like on your skin, but you can also, I made them into a spray, because sometimes people don't want to go to the bother of taking the drops or putting them on their skin. So the spray is nice and easy. So I created the Boundaries spray, and I gave her a bottle. And you just over your head a couple of times a day, because the energy works in your field. And she called me in 2 days and she said, I don't know what's in that bottle, but I just told everybody to go pound salt. and leave me alone. And this is what I need. And you guys can't bother me anymore. So that was quite a strong reaction from somebody who had just found it really difficult to say no. Sometimes it works that fast. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but she found it very helpful. And I was happy about that.
Okay, let's go to the opposite side now, since you just mentioned
Okay.
sometimes it takes longer. Have you ever
Yep.
had an instance where something just did not work like you thought it would for a client and you had to try different things for that client?
Definitely. I'm trying to think of a situation, but sometimes too, when it comes to subtle things, they don't work like drugs do. So you take something, you have an effect. You take something, you have an effect. Sometimes there's an effect, but you might not be actually conscious of what actually has happened. And that's why sometimes you'll get a client who will say, I've gone to 4 or 5 people and, I haven't had any help yet, but somehow this worked. But sometimes that's not always true. They may have been making progress with each of the people, and you just happen to be the person who kind of gave them something that had an effect. So I believe that all things help everybody. Some of them are kind of holy mackerel and very obvious, but some of them are awfully subtle too. So yeah, you just keep going, just keep encouraging them and see what you need to do until we get something that they're happy with.
Right. Well, it sounds wonderful. Like it's a different way of finding out if you have emotional blockage or anything like that that can be unblocked and actually help you progress more. So I think it's wonderful that you have that option.
Definitely.
And how long did
Definitely.
it take you to learn this? Was it something that's taken you a long, long time, or did it come easy for you and you're like, oh, this is really cool. I can keep going on this?
It doesn't, it's not difficult because Dr. Bach, who created them, he was of the mind that this should be super simple, super easy to use. People should have access to all of these things. And that's what I try and do with people is give them things that they can use quickly and easily just to help with the day-to-day. Because, if you can help calm yourself, like with some of the tapping that I do, if you can breathe better, just because I'm also a botanical breathing educator, these little things that we can do every day for ourselves, they help our overall, health over a longer period of time. But it's the premise, the idea of them is pretty simple. But when you know how many 100,000 types of flowers there are in the world, there are also a lot of different flowers that will do similar things. So you don't have to have 100,000 remedies. You can work with a very small set because many flowers will do the same thing. So I don't have them all memorized. Sometimes I go to my little book because, like I said, I work with over 100 of them. But you start to see a few that are pretty similar and get used to working with them.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's a great benefit that you actually know what you do on that and you can progress and help people with their needs as well. So maybe they don't always have
For
to go
sure.
to a medical person, but sometimes it's nice just to say, well, I need a little bit of help. Maybe this will help out. So,
Definitely.
and
Even
emotional
things
as
like,
well.
oh yeah. And fears can be, even if it's going to a medical appointment, if you've got something that can help you just calm yourself before you go, because sometimes we're dealing with things that are stressful, things that are, they're not always pleasant. But even if these kind of things can just help you get through those things, then that's a benefit too. So I am definitely an and person, not an or person. So I like to use all the tools.
Yeah, it's always good that way. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much, Christine, for coming out here on Haunting Live podcast this week and talking
you're
about
so
what you
welcome.
do. It's been very enlightening and teaching people about the different ways you can use energy for medicine. I think it's wonderful. So different
Thank you,
options for
Trevor.
people.
You're
Before we
so
let you
welcome.
go here this afternoon on Haunting Live, is there anything that you've been sort of working on or promoting during COVID that you want to talk about or that you're currently working on?
Sure.
Sure.
I do sessions over Zoom and I also do them in person. I work out of the Eagle Street Healing Center in Cambridge, and I have an office there. I also do tapping. So you might have heard that called EFT. This is called trauma tapping. It's a very short, easy way to help worry and stress. And so I'll be offering some free workshops on that. And we're also going to be having a lot of meditations, fun spirit nights, lots of different things at the center in the fall. And I'm working on a mini day retreat. So if you check out New Healing Horizons, I'll be posting the dates and everything for that as they come up.
Sounds great. So those two
Awesome.
people that are local here in the KW region, like we are, she's in Cambridge. Go check her out, and
Awesome.
hopefully she can help you out with some of your maybe blockages that you have. So,
I'll do my best.
yep. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for being here and
Thank
helping
you,
us out here
Trevor.
today on Haunted Live. I really appreciate you coming on as a guest, talking about your experiences today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
It's creepy. I don't like it in here.
Hey, what's the matter with you?
Where did you go?
Wild. Put your soul into it. Wild. What's going on around you?